And now for the TBA montage.
If they show love, I'ma show it back. If the catch is too small, I'ma throw it back. I've done a lot, but I ain't got a lot to show for that. Alright, yeah, let's do that again. If they show love, I'ma show it back. If the catch is too small, I'ma throw it back. I've done a lot, but I ain't got a lot to show for that. Alright, yeah, let's get into it. A lot of things have happened since we last spoke. Like smash hopes, half empty, now this glass is broke. And I'm the captain of this crash boat. So when it's time to sink or swim, I always choose to do the back float. I know that not a lot of humans are as sharp as I am. My modesty's my greatest quality.
Alright, kick back, relax, and let's hit it again. While you go tell your mother, father, cousin, and kid, and your other friends that don't even have a clue what this 2-2 crew is about to do. You know it ain't fool's gold, this is kryptonite. Super MCs freeze when I hit the mic, right? EFF is the AKA. I keep it popping like bubble WRAP. And if you don't know by now, then listen up, stupid. CSWS came to do it. Got more flavor than you and your crew, kid. So get your hands together if you're ready to lose it and bounce to the breakneck beat. And like junior, seniors, it's to move your feet. You bring the buckets, I bring the refreshments, and stay fresh to death like I'm choking on a breath mint.
I can fly. I'm on 6, 7, 8, cloud 9, and ain't nothing gonna stop me, 'cause I'm just too mighty and high.
Can't nobody get me down. Up and away, let me get that. Touch a nose zone with no jet pack. I'm a bag of bones full of helium. Lit foot on the verse, equilibrium. Raps a million, no quotidian. Extraordinary, next air to the throne like a rising sun, making rising sums. Up and away with a million thumbs. So self-made, you think I was asexual. Fresh figure, let me finish my victuals. Bon appetit, yeah, time for treats. Better get it fast, boy, it melts in the heat. I'm wrecking on the mic, I'm on a mission to ruin. You wanna know how it's gonna get to doing as I'm doing? I'm a Sally Ford, like a Sally Young. Raps how I'm done, it won't run, workplace upon.
I can fly. I'm on 6, 7, 8, cloud 9, and ain't nothing gonna stop me, 'cause I'm just too mighty and high.
Can't nobody get me down. Hey, naysayers, how y'all been? It's been a minute, but I'm in it to win, and I ain't finished. This is the starting gun, and I'ma run it to the front until I'm number one, son. This is a rhythmic defibrillation. Innovative old school to thrill the nation. I've been patiently waiting and building steam, but I'm back with a bounce like a trampoline. Oh, please. I feel it bubbling up. It's 10 times bigger, but it's never enough. You gotta get up early or you'll miss the call. So let me show all of y'all what's in my crystal ball. I sized up the prize, eyes on the opportunity. My mind on my money and my roots in the community. So get your booty sweet, creativity, coma. My future's so bright, I'm getting melanoma.
I can fly. I'm on 6, 7, 8, cloud 9, and ain't nothing gonna stop me, 'cause I'm just too mighty and high.
Fresh big, how you feeling? David F. Man, I'm on top. I can't believe they're hearing this from the rooftop of hip hop. Fresh Biggie, how you feeling? David F. Man, I'm on top. I can't believe they're feeling this from the rooftop of hip hop. Nobody get me down.
Format. It's already dead. Okay, break down. That's the point. Yep, I'm in here. I'm on her. Dry push.
Teleport left.
Teleport left. They don't know we're coming with that. We've been fucked up. We fucked up.
Oh my god. Dude, where did it go? What the fuck?
It went right in front of the cliff.
Pushed me off the edge.
It went right in front of the cliff. You
Whoever
lied.
teleported after me just pushed me off the edge.
Yeah.
Hello and welcome to Owlet and our semi-final minors matchup between TBA and Otter Oxide. I'm Spaceman and I'm joined by the wonderful Pulse, and this is going to be a really good match tonight, Pulse.
Of course it is. These two teams are ranked second and third in the minors division, so it's going to be a pretty close matchup. Probably one of the better ones we've seen in the minors, but these teams have also faced up a couple times against each other, and each time it's sort of going either way, so it's one of those situations where we don't really know who's going to win until the match is over.
Indeed, even in stage 1, it looks like To Be Announced did take the victory 3-1, but a lot of those maps were very hard fought. Busan being a 2-1, for instance. Control maps are always good to have a look at as well, and Hanamura was a 2-1 as well in favour of Otter Oxide, so I suspect the maps tonight might be a little bit back and forth. So we'll see what the teams want to pull out here, but both doing very, very well to get to the semi-finals, and obviously wanting to get through the semi-finals and get through to the finals to face off against Flashpoint, who, just a bit of a recap, finished off 3-1 against Expandable Odyssey yesterday, which was premiered on Owlet earlier. So both teams there wanting to get through to the finals to face off against Flashpoint.
Yeah, of course. And as you were saying, these teams are very close, and some close matches came up. Some of those matches in the previous stages that we have seen have actually been on different patches, so there could be some surprises tonight, but I still expect it to be very close.
Yeah, it's going to be a close one. But the new patches have brought with them, a little bit more scope for DPS play, perhaps on some of the maps. We still do see a lot of teams maybe go back to their comfort picks of the 3-3 goat style compositions of the Reinhardts and the Woodlands. But those compositions are a real litmus test of how well coordinated these teams are, and their communication skills as well, because they've got to utilize those cooldowns effectively, those Zarya bubbles, those Brigitte shield bashes, etc. when they're doing that. But then we can go to some other maps, and we might see some pharmacy play, maybe a bit of soldier now as well. So I think anything could come out of the bag tonight, Pulse.
Absolutely, and we've seen a lot of Genji play come out, especially in the majors division, ever since the patch hit, which is something that I'm excited to see again, just because Genji Blade is such an exciting ult in Overwatch, probably the most exciting one. And a lot of people sort of have a pocket Genji just from back before goats during dive. We've seen a lot of good tracer play in both divisions, so a lot more opportunities to be a little bit more off the wall here, sort of pull out whatever you can to win this, and I hope for a really exciting match because of that.
Yeah, and we've got a fixed map pool for this evening as well, which is nice because it gives us a chance to have a look through these. We're going to be going to Lijiang Tower first, control map there. Control maps tend to be quite good because they gauge a team's communication coordination, because they're on a symmetrical map. They don't have to worry about payloads. They don't have to worry about defensive positions versus offensive positions. They've got to get in there, win the team fights, and try and win that first team fight as well, because that is super, super important.
Of course. And control maps in general, too, are one of those maps where it boils down to a lot more to individuals' skills on teams. Like, everyone has a chance to shine because of that symmetry in the map, because taking 1v1s and winning them is a lot more important when the entire point of the map is to maintain control of a point, whereas in some of the asymmetrical ones like attack, defense, or payload, you can be down and sort of come back in fights where it's really hard to do that in King of the Hill. But Lijiang is going to be our first map, so a lot of pharmacy, I expect, which is Pharah and Mercy. Then we're moving on to Rialto after that, which is a very tank-heavy map, and we've seen a lot of that come up in previous weeks and different matches. And then followed off by Hanamura, Kings Row, and Busan. So we'll talk about those maps a little bit more as we get to them. But I expect some pharmacy, and then some going back to good old goats play in the second map of this first half.
What I find really exciting is the first two maps there, Lijiang and Rialto. These teams have not faced off against each other on these maps. Hanamura, Kings Row, and Busan, they have. So when we get to that point, we can start discussing maybe the scores that these teams put into the scorecard before. But Lijiang, Rialto, both teams untested here. So it's going to be a really good fight between these two. We are on a best of 4 format for those just joining us. So slightly different to best of 5, because it means draws play into this slightly differently. If there is a draw, say on Hanamura, for instance, and one team is 2 maps up. That could secure them the win there, but we'll tackle that when we get to it. First of all, we've got to get into Lijiang Tower, and I think depending on which map comes on first here, Pulse, we're going to see a few different compositions.
And when we talk about King of the Hill maps, there's always 3 different maps that can come up. With Lijiang, they're called Control Center, Gardens, and Night Market. And in this instance, Control Center is a little bit weird. If that one comes out, I fully expect to see more tank-heavy compositions, possibly Maze, Reapers, Hogs, but it looks like we're going to be starting on Gardens. So it's a very strong pharmacy map. Dive tanks are very strong here. You can run goats potentially if you play on the side away from the cliff. So you have a couple different options, and it depends on how teams want to run this.
Yeah, and we're going to be having Otter Oxide in the blue and TBA in the red hair, still to lock in their heroes. As you say, a bit of pharmacy action is always good to look out for those environmental kills with the boop that comes in ever so often. Teams have to be quite careful with that, but a lot of teams choose to run the 3-3 composition, get on point, establish their point presence, and just try and stay on there. The problem with doing that sometimes is if the enemy team has run a DPS heavy composition, they can set off point. If they play the long game, poke in there, send all their damage in there, charge up their ultimates, sometimes you can fall behind on the ultimate economy if you're playing that 3-3.
Yeah, and 3-3 compositions, 3 tank, 3 support, rely so much on staying above the other team in ultimate economies to make sure you never overcommit entering fights. And it makes it so if you switch late, it's almost a lost fight, especially in King of the Hill maps where it's a very short round, and it looks like both teams are opting for these more normalized comps. So we see some DPS coming out, the McCree and the Pharah on one side, and the Ashe and Pharah on the other. So very similar compositions.
We will have Bird on the Pharah. Taken out by Simple very early on there. Simple does have Yoix on that Mercy, so Yoix there, she's going to be able to provide a little bit more healing to her Pharah. And look at that, there we go, we get the boot, and Simple is making this look absolutely simple. TBA are going to be able to move in, get the kills they need to secure that point, and they're just looking for a few follow-up kills and some staggers now.
Of course, and Simple completely opened up that fight with getting the 3 big kills on, first of all, starting on the enemy Pharah, followed up by the two ladder kills. But when you are starting a map down 3, there's really no way to come back from that. So they're going to get the early cap on TBA, and it's really up to Otter Oxide to figure out how they want to attack this next. It looks like they are going to be playing for bridge.
The ultimate economy advantage here. Simple nearly with that barrage. Going to be looking to use that, but won't have to in this fight. We're getting an environmental kill there from Joe. Now we're getting 2 there as well. That fight was shut down before it even began, and the ultimate economy now so heavily in favor of TBA. Otter Oxide have to do something really special here, Paul.
And TBA have really not allowed Otter Oxide to do anything onto this point. Every single time, they're getting 1 or 2 environmental kills before the actual fight even starts, which means that it's just cleanup every single time Otter Oxide get to point. They are finally smartening up a little bit and not staying so close to the edge where they can easily get booped like they've gotten the last 2 fights, and they're playing in this indoor room now.
Oh, Simple comes in with the barrage though, gets the 2k. Yes, Bird manages to get a boop on to Marty Barter there, but it's not going to matter. Simple with another 2k there as well. Only 1 ultimate, no, sorry, 2 ultimates invested there by TBA, but they're still going to have the bob in the bag, and they've almost got that self-destruct as well. 72% on the clock now, Paul.
Yeah, it's getting very close for Otter Oxide to pick up this point because they are really only in last fight territory right now, and they're going to have to fight through a Bob and a Primal range, and another barrage is coming up for Simple. So if they're not paying attention to these ults, not ult tracking like you need to be doing right now, they can easily get mauled right here.
And the bomb is coming out. The Bird's there with a barrage of her own. Does take out Simple, but it's taken out by Simple as well. And Marta there with the Primal Rage gets the 2k, and I think this has just secured the point here for TBA.
It looks like this is mostly cleanup. They still have to fight through the remaining tank and support on the point, which it's kind of hard to nail down a Lucio sometimes, so we'll see if Xavier can even keep this up. It looks like he's going to drop to that Ashe Dynamite there at the very end.
Current back with a Graviton Surge, might be able to do something with it, but walks straight in. Simple How many barrages has Simple had this match? I think it was the third or fourth right there. Does get taken out by Bird, but is immediately resurrected by Yikes. And
with that,
TBA.
the overtime wick is completely dropped out as soon as everyone was cleared off the point, and that is an early map for TBA.
Yeah, that was a very dominant performance there, especially from Simple on that Farah. Bird, obviously, on the opposite number there, she was also on the Farah, but didn't have the support from the Mercy. So you start taking poke damage as a Farah, and you don't have that Mercy to be able to fly up and heal you. It does make it a lot more difficult. But moving on to Control Center now, I think we're going to see some heavier compositions here, Pulse.
Yeah, for sure. And we already see some swaps coming through. We see Otter Oxide opting to run that triple-triple, the 3 supports in the Zenyatta, Lucio, and Brig, 3 tanks in the Ryan, Zarya, and Diva. And that is what is a lot of people have been getting a little bit sick of in Overwatch, just because of how common this composition is becoming. It has a very strong staying power. It's very hard to remove from point. But we do see TBA opting for the Hanzo and Junkrat. So a lot more spam damage coming through, but a little bit squishier for it.
Shot to win, looking for some sharp arrows, perhaps, to start this fight up. Both teams now pushing forward, utilising the cooldowns, utilising those Zarya bubbles to enable their Orions to swing away. But Simple will get the first pick onto Xavier. EXE gets the 2k as well. That spam damage is proving pivotal in this first fight. And TBA getting all of the picks here. They're going to be able to establish themselves on this point first, Pulse.
Simple has been absolutely instrumental in this and the previous map, just getting very early kills on this Farah and this Junkrat, and really making Otter Oxide play on their back foot all the time, because every time they push through these doors, they're taking half of their health from all this poke damage coming through.
Now Otter Oxide making a push here, but Bird goes down early. There's already a tire out from Simple. Finds Litcat. Nano used there on to Martabata, perhaps an overuse there from Yikes, but TBA are looking so dominant here, I don't think it's going to matter at this stage.
Yeah, and they're already up to a Dragon Strike, a Shatter, and they're not. And we see Otter Oxide not really close to anything other than this Transcendence. They will have a Shatter, but if Marty Butter is able to get this off before Bowl of Bulls can, then it's game over for them on this push.
We've got them Reinhardt mind games underway. However, the Dragons come out. It's bound to. Both Shatters out now as well, but that Dragon again shut down another fight before it had even begun.
TBA is taking these fights very far up and not giving Otter Oxide any room. Just every time they're on their approach, they're unable to touch point without having half their team die in the process. And it doesn't look like they have a very strong solution to get through here without eating this poke, but they really need to go on a rotation or do something a little bit different than what they've been doing, because it's really not been working for them.
Do have the Transcendence to tackle Petticoat Pirates, Graviton Surge there. Nothing really to combo it with. Yoink's going to be looking perhaps for a good biotic grenade, but a tire comes out from Simple and finds Bird early on. It will be a 6v5 in favour of TBA. They are caught in the Graviton Surge. Not too much to combo with, other than Famsu's Self-Destruct does find Jonak, but another Nano onto Martabata, who's swinging away, trying to get some damage done. We're getting to 97% here. This is last fight territory. TBA are losing a couple of members, but Sharp Shot to Win is firing arrows left, right, and center, and hitting his mark. Litzcat, though, and Bird back on that point. We see this heavier, brawlier composition here from Otter Oxide on the point. They are getting the kills. They are going to be able to flip this pulse, but 99% in favor of TBA. They need to win one more fight.
Yeah, and really, honestly, the spawns had a lot to do with that, because in overtime, the team with more point people on point can delay the other team's spawns, and that's sort of why they started getting all these people back from their own spawn sooner. They had that spawn advantage. It was a little bit faster for them coming back, and they were eventually able to outlast it. The tire finding nothing from Simple, but Jonak getting a boot kill on the Diva to start this fight means good things for TBA.
It means good things indeed. We see the Shatter coming down from Sparta as well. He's pushing forward, swinging away, trying to get some follow-up, but there was a really good sound barrier from Xavier EXE, keeping Otter Oxide alive. And now they've got the rally as well. They've got a lot of sustain here. However, Nano out on to Martabata again, trying to swing away. Has to keep his shield up to block the Shatter of his opposite number. Gets boots in the corner, does go down. TBA losing members one by one. They're going to have to back off and regroup here.
Otter Oxide has finally found their footing, and they have the power that they want. They have this more brawly composition, so they're able to hold this forward choke a little bit better, and they're in a position where they have the ults online that they need to in order to stay alive and potentially win this map. We do see some swaps coming out from the side of TBA, in that Sharp Shot just swapped over to the Ashe, which we saw earlier on Gardens, but they're coming through to put this Ashe in play because Ashe has a dynamite skill that does a lot of pressure to these tank-based compositions. And with this tire coming out from Simple, it might be the opening they need to take this point.
Ramsey trying to take it out before it finds anyone. Does it manage to get any value? No, gets shot out in the air by Lijiang. Great mechanical skill there. Graviton Surge come out. Martabata is caught in it, but manages to stay alive through all of that damage because of the sound barrier of Jonak. And now there's a counter Graviton Surge. However, the Transcendence is there from Lijiang to keep the team alive. But as soon as the Transcendence goes down, look at all the damage coming out from Simple on that. Junkrat making it look simple. The point will flip to TBA. Litcat will go down, and I don't think Otter Oxide are going to be able to touch, and map 1, Lijiang Tower, will go to TBA.
Fantastic use of ults in that last section. Every single time we saw TBA being able to use theirs slightly after Otter Oxide, and in matches where you're running these very similar comps or almost mirror comps, generally the person who used theirs latter wins, especially with the case of support ults. And because of that, TBA was just able to slightly outlast Otter Oxide and take control center there at the end.
And a nice little play of the game there. Love the Ashe play, actually. New patch obviously making Dynamite that much more effective against armor and against those heavier compositions. So it's great to see some DPS heroes in play as well. And Simple on the Junkrat was just as effective as Simple was on the Pharaoh, I thought. A few of the tires could have got a little bit more value, but I tell you what, if you get 1 or 2 picks and the other team isn't running a Mercy, you're winning a lot of those fights in those scenarios.
Yeah, definitely. And honestly, that last fight, not only was it just in general a little bit tighter team play from TBA, but I really enjoyed seeing Yikes on the Ana. Just incredible nade usage to close out that fight, making so the enemy team is denied those crucial heals that they need, especially after getting shattered. So very good play from both Simple and Yikes to close out Lijiang.
And we will be seeing some substitutions. Brutal and Pi will be coming in for Bird and Skura on the side of Otter Oxide. And the teams will be switching sides, so don't get confused. Otter Oxide will be in the red, TBA will be on the blue for our next map, which I believe is Rialto. So we'll be getting underway shortly for that. But that last map on Control Center there was actually a lot closer than what we saw on Gardens. Do you think that Otter Oxide perhaps are going to be more comfortable with the 3-3 heavier compositions, and perhaps now we're going to Rialto, that might give them a bit of an edge?
Maybe. I will say that one thing I like about Rialto is way back before 3-3s even came out, Pharaoh was one of the heroes to pick. And we saw some of that in the minors division so far already. Teams kind of not wanting to play 3-3, they're kind of sick of it, or even maybe it's not their strong suit, because the rankings were shaken up a little bit after that patch that brought in the new hero and changed a lot of them. So some teams just don't want to play 3-3 if they can help it. And honestly, after watching that last map, I think TBA might be one of those teams, just because of how effective Simple was on all of the flex DPS heroes, all of that spam damage, and how much we saw from Sharp Shot on the Ashe, because they were able to pressure the tanks, get all of those early kills just by building ult so quickly, using all of the poke damage they get from just shooting heavy burst type weapons into all of the enemy team, was able to make sure that they had a tire, a barrage, and bob almost every single fight. And it's really hard to play against a team when they have their strongest ability available every fight.
Indeed, and Rialto's one of those maps where on first point, there's a few interesting compositions that the defense can choose to use, because we quite often see the 3-3 or even some quad tank in certain scenarios where you try and hold as early as you can at the door, and the idea being that you're going to lose a fight eventually, but if you can win the first fight and maybe the second or the third, you've stopped that cart from moving, and that gives you a second contest and maybe even a third on first point. And if on Rialto you can get that cart stopped before you get to first point, that puts you in a really good position.
Yeah, and it takes a ton of time off the time bank for attackers, because as is, even if you don't take that first fight right outside of the attacker spawn, it's very hard to complete point A. It's a long point, and the cart doesn't move very fast through it. So normally you can get 2, and if you fight at spawn, you can get 3 fights in that they have to win in a row before they can even cap the first point, which is not an easy feat with your 4-minute time bank to start. And that's one of the strongest points about running the triple on defense. On offense, I think there's a little bit more variety available. Generally, if you know you're a stronger GOATS team, or if you're confident in running triple compositions, you should take the mirror match because it means that you will win every map. That's just sort of how it works in Overwatch. But there's a little bit more room to experiment on attack, but I still think the dominant composition for the defense, the defensive side in Rialto, is generally going to be some variant of triple.
And we will have TBA on the defense, Otter Oxide on the attack. Let's start having a look at what TBA decide to lock in here, because I think that's going to shape what we're going to see here on first point. And they've gone for a very mobile composition.
Okay, so we're still loading into this map.
Oh, I got
I don't expect this to be the end composition, because I was honestly looking at this and just confused.
I was excited more than I was confused.
I was too. I was like, this is some new experimental version of Overwatch. It's Overwatch 2 at this point.
It is. That's now we're going to see what composition they're going to lock in. If it's the same one, I will. I don't know. I'll sing a little song or something. I'm not quite sure, but I doubt it will be that. We might see a bit of wrecking ball. There's some boop potential on the bridge, but it tends to be Lucio's that do most of that booping, or even Orissa's with some, depending on, if you're running a bunker strategy or something.
Yeah, I know we've seen a couple teams in Overwatch League run variants of bunker on first point now, as they're sort of experimenting with the latest patch. So you've seen some bunker, you've seen some use of the new hero that actually teams in this tournament can't use just because of the timing of the patch. It was disabled for the finals, so you won't see any Baptiste here. But on this defense, we do see this pharmacy coming out, and I was sort of alluding to this earlier, because if you play around this first corner, this first 90-degree corner right outside of spawn, the buildings give Pharah a lot of cover from attackers, and you can just sort of poke and be very safe while poking. Like, you're not really at any sort of threat if you take this position. And it's going to be very similar coming out on both sides. We see a lot of sniper duel potential happening, but we do see the attackers coming out with a lot more dive-oriented sniper composition, which is something that's not super common on Rialto. So I'm interested to see how this plays out.
Also interested to see sniper duel is going to play out. It will be brutal one. Takes out Sharp Shot to win straight on, allowing Brutal One to get up there and get a shot into Yikes. She was just a little bit out in the open there. 2 picks immediately for Otter Oxide, and they're able to use this to their advantage. Get aggressive here, get some staggers, and Brutal One is just absolutely popping off here. That's 3 kills in that last fight, half of the enemy team there. But make it 4, they're getting the staggers as well. And this cart is nearly at first pop.
Yeah, and this is insane too, because this is an incredibly fast take for Rialto point A. They're going to have, the defense is going to have a very hard time making their way back here unless Sharpshot just wins this Widow's Pool, which you don't. So this is more or less going to be a free take of point A for the attackers, and it's going to set them up for an amazing time on Rialto. They're going to have to change their composition. The defenders are going to have to change their composition to address Brutal, because I don't think they expected this level of Widow coming out right now.
They did, and they switched up their comp somewhat here. They're going into the high ground, but Petticoat Pirate, he is already de-mech'd, so gonna have to try and get that mech back before they engage, really, otherwise they're going to be attacked.
And by de-meching that D.Va, it gives their team so much space, because they're going to have to play further and further back, really giving room to the attacker team until we see the D.Va get their mech back, but they fall to the Widow again. So even though both teams have a member down, the advantage is still with the attackers right now.
Bruce One being very aggressive there, very confident on that Widow. Able to take some interesting sight lines here. Waiting for the dive to come in from TBA. They're going to need to deal with that, but the self-destruct now coming out from Point Ninja does find Simple. And the momentum that Otter Oxide have on this map is absolutely fantastic. They're getting kills. That cart is moving up. They've got so much time left on the clock pulse.
I don't think that TBA was prepared for snipers. They fully expected to run this in at some sort of tank composition, or definitely expected to face a tank composition, because the cart has not stopped moving ever since they walked out of spawn. And Brutal has been getting these picks. Bamsu's been adding so much pressure on the Hanzo, and Bull Bulls has just been going wild with all the space that the DPS is providing.
TBA diving in now, but there's a dragon coming out from Bamsu. It finds 2, make that 3. Brutal one as well, finishing off shot to win with the Venom Mine there as well. And I think this cart could get to the end with over 4 minutes on the clock pulse. This is crazy.
Yeah, this could actually potentially beat Vancouver Titans' time set in Overwatch League a while ago, and it's absolutely nuts to finish this map at all, let alone with 5 minutes on the bank.
TBA do have a few ultimates in the bank now. Marta Barta there with the Primal takes out Brutal One. We see the Nano coming out onto Petticoat Pirate. She's trying to make something happen as well. Simple going down to Famsu, but the spawn advantage definitely in favour of TBA here. If they're able to get a few kills, they're going to be able to stabilise. But Marta Barta has gone down. It's back and forth at the moment. Blade coming out from Shot to win. Gets taken down by Famsu though. There's still a lot of Otter Oxide here. And now the Dragon coming out from Famsu is going to do a good job at zoning TBA off the point. However, they are coming back onto that point one by one. That cart is stalled. Otter Oxide going to have to get a few more kills here, and that's exactly what they're doing. Self-destruct comes overhead, takes out Petticoat Pirate. That cart is still moving, and we are going to see that cart get to the end with over 4 minutes left on the clock pulse, and that is a really good time on Rialto.
That is absurd for Rialto. 4 minutes, like... I know I've mentioned this before, but Rialto is a map where if you finish it, generally you're happy. So having 4 minutes left means that they finished and still have enough time to do what they just did again. The most time that you have for a payload map is 8 minutes, plus or minus some overtime, but they finished it in under half of that. So in order for TBA to even have a chance on this map, they're going to have to match that level of aggression or something, because that's just unheard of.
Certainly puts you on the back foot there. A bit of a confidence knocker, but we've seen teams come back from worse, and judging by TBA's performance on Lijiang Tower, they are a good team. I think they were just on the back foot for most of that push there. They weren't really able to stabilize at any point. If they get a good push here, even if they manage to finish with 1 or 2 minutes left on the clock, that's going to put them right back in this game.
Finishing with their goal for this map, if they want to be competitive, is to complete the map with over a minute left. Really, if you're under a minute, then it adds time to both teams' time banks, but if you're able to finish over a minute, then it doesn't give the other team any more of advantage. So right now, their win condition for Rialto is to finish this with as much time as possible, but hopefully at least a minute or more. Ideally like 2 or even 3 if they can do it, but at least a minute.
Otter Oxide holding this high ground with this double sniper composition. Brutal one, this time on the Ash. Let's see if he can be as brutal with that Ash as he was with Widowmaker earlier on in the series, and he's like, yes, taking down Sharpshot to win early on. Defenders with the advantage, but the dive still comes in from TBA. They're moving the cart along, but Barta does go down. And the defense is going to be able to stabilize it.
The defense is absolutely going to stabilize, and it's going to be back to spawn to reevaluate their plans for the attackers, because that didn't work out how they wanted. Sharpshot getting taken down by an Ash very early on means that this cart's going to get stalled at the first corner, and they're going to have to... This corner's a little bit hard because of this 90-degree angle, and it gives the same sight lines that the defenders just have, and they're going to have to set for some new type of dive while they make space for their own snipers here.
Litcat is going to have his ultimate up for this next fight as well. I suspect that's going to be going on to a bowl of bowls, but Sharpshot to win, finally taking out Brutal One. Point enjoyed the self-destruct over the top though, takes out Sharpshot, and Simple has gone down as well. So yeah, Brutal One is out of the picture. So is most of TBA at the moment, and they seem to be struggling on this point pulse.
The defense, honestly, Brutal One has been absolutely brutal this map. Just, I'm pretty sure most kills on the kill feed that we've seen have been awarded to Brutal. So this one hero sub for them, bringing in Brutal this map, has more or less won them this map. It's been absolutely nuts so far.
Simple does have that blade, and we've seen how effective Simple can be with it. It's coming out. Can Simple get any value though? Doesn't manage to get any kills so far. Indeed gets taken out by the Primal Rage of Bowls. Marta Barter here gets tries to get out of there, doesn't quite manage it, but OTOX getting to pick onto Bowl of Bowls has just allowed TBA an opportunity to push up and get Sharp Shot to win on that high ground. Sharp Shot trying to get some kills, but gets slept there by Lichcat. And look at that! Brutal One with an absolutely brutal headshot to a sleeping Widow.
That's gotta be rough for Sharp Shot. The cart does get a little bit more distance and gets them a little bit more favorable position to attack this next fight in, but even then it's still minimal, and they're gonna have to make their way through this courtyard, which itself is a very decisive team fight away from capping point A.
Make something happen with it, but it's Point Ninja self-destruct that will find Simple early on. Transcendence coming out from Jonak, giving his team that extra bit of sustain. Petticoat Pirate with the 3k! She's done it! She's enabled her team to push up. They have the numbers advantage. They're going to be able to get the stagger onto Bowl of Bowls as well, and that should secure them first here.
It's going to be one final fight at this last, just because Famsu is already there, and they have the tank presence needed to at least stall it out. But the attackers are now running that triple comp into this, so they should be able to win these brawly fights.
Do that. They do have the sound barrier in defense, and Martivas has gone down early. Sharp Shot to win as well. Only 4 members of TBA left. I think they need to back off and regroup here and just try and get in as a team, but they're falling one by one. These staggers are going to be really difficult for them to deal with, and look at this. Otter Oxide sensed the weakness. We see the Primal Rage coming out of Bowl of Bowls, takes out Simple, and I think Otter Oxide are about to even this series up. We do see the last minute charge from Marta Barter, and Jonah does get the pick onto Bowl of Bowls, and is now there with the Transcendence as well. A bit of sustain there. That card is moving up. Shatter coming out as well from Marta Barter. Sound barrier is there. Both teams fighting it out on this point. And look at this, Jonah getting 2 kills here could prove pivotal, but neither team wants to give this up. Jonak with another kill there as well. I can see why he's asked to be called Jonak. He's emulating that famous player from the Overwatch League, and we're gonna finally get it there, Holes.
Eventually in overtime, and they're doing their best to keep this alive right now, because they only have 2 minutes, and whereas we saw Otter Oxide on their team have like about 6 minutes at this point, so it's still possible to complete Rialto, but at this point they need to make sure that they do it in time before they get under that minute, like I was talking about earlier. If you can complete this with that minute, then it doesn't make the attacker's job any easier. It'll be hard for you, but they need to make space and make sure that this cart just rolls on to C at this point of the map.
Switched off onto that Zarya, so not a lot of ults for the defense here. TBA though will have the Shatter. Martivas looking for that, and now we're seeing the Bigger Bang combo come out, and look at that biotic grenade as well coming in from Jonak. Very well placed, but only a demech there from the self-destruct, but that could be all that TBA need. If they stick together as a team, get some target focus, they should be able to win out on this fight. The longer it goes on, the better it is for the defense. Famsu going down could prove pivotal. Simple marching on up, very high charge there, utilizing those bubbles very effectively to gain that charge. Shatter though coming out, counter Shatter in return from Bowl of Bowls. Will go down though. And this payload is moving quite quickly.
Yeah, and this is the best case scenario right now for TBA. They needed to complete B quickly, because B is where a lot of teams get stuck on this map, which they absolutely did. It wasn't really stopped at all during that push, and now it sets them up for the time that they needed to complete C on. They won't finish with over 2 minutes just because of the distance this cart needs to travel, but if they can win the next fight, or even the next 2 fights, then they can really have another chance to really win this fight, or win this map in general. It's going to be hard, but it's going to be possible, which is exactly what they need right now.
be pushing in with the rally and the graviton surge as well, but an instant transcendence from Litcat won't matter though, because look, grenade from Jonak. That's allowed Barter and Simple to push forward, deal the damage they need to do. That cart is moving on up, and I don't think there's going to be time for another contest here from Otter Oxide. Indeed, the cart will get there with some time left on the clock, and we really do have a game on our hands.
We do. And TBA looked much more prepared to fight that near triple cut, because as soon as they capped point A and both teams sort of swapped to goats, it was never really stopped. Otter Oxide was a little bit more lost when they had to have Brutal One on a non-sniper hero. So obviously sort of finding how to abuse some members of the other team here from TBA. As soon as they were able to force that 3-3 mirror match, they were able to start winning fights very easily off of Ana nades from Jonak and everything else. Just every single fight, they were unstoppable almost.
When you've got two teams like this that seem so equally matched, it's all about that adaptation as you making sensible hero switches, those essential compositional switches as well, and that's exactly what TBA were doing towards the end there. I mean, Simple switching off to that Zarya as well. Yes, we've seen Simple be very effective on some DPS heroes, and we might be seeing a DPS hero coming out of this. We might see a pirate ship if they stay on this composition pulse.
Yeah, and it looks like they're going to opt for this pirate ship exactly. So they're going to be running. Oh, Simple, no. Okay, well, we got a little bit baited there, but we thought we saw a Bastion coming out. Bastion's a little bit weak on Rialto just because some of the high ground makes it hard for him to be effective in these narrow alleyways, but they're going to be taking this mirror matchup with it. They look so good on at the end of last round.
That'd be an interesting surprise strategy, but they decided to go with something a little bit more conventional. They were doing very well on this 3, so obviously wanting to stick there. Both teams now jockeying for position on that corner. Famsu going down early has opened up this attack here from TBA. They're getting a lot of kills here. Barter does go down, but not going to matter for this particular fight. We might see one more contest here on first, but this card is going to get rolling.
Yeah, this card is absolutely rolling, and things look very different at this point of the map than it did. Almost holding them on point A. We see Otter Oxide getting absolutely rolled in this Goats mirror matchup, and they don't really know how to approach this. It definitely looks like a strong suit for TBA right now.
Wrong side back for the last contest here on first. Happy to hold. There's Shatter coming down from Bowl of Bowls. Doesn't manage to find too much. However, does find Sharp Shot to win. Swinging left and right. Barter though with the Fire Strike taking out Brutal One. Picks on both sides, an absolute brawl on point. A lot of sustain from both teams. This is all about who can get the kills, who can get them quickest. And that kill feed is looking blue. There is a Transcendence though coming out from Litcat. Otter Oxide think they can win this fight, but Benvigllow Pirate sending in the self-destruct, managing to take out some of the defending team, and that kill feed is getting blue. We are in overtime now, Pulse, and nobody can afford to leave that point.
Yeah, since we are now in overtime, the clock has run out for the attackers. As soon as someone leaves cart, the overtime wick at the top of your screen is going to absolutely plummet. So Yikes is going to have to stay back, stay on cart, and make sure that they get as much distance on this as possible.
Oxide needing win one team fight here to stop this cart effectively, and they've got a lot of ultimates in the bank to do that. Brutal One with the Graviton Surge, Pie Ninja with that self-destruct as well. Simple with the Graviton of his own. And now this is going to be a deciding fight here for how far this payload is going to get. We see the Graviton Surge coming out, we see the self-destruct there from Pie Ninja. Doesn't manage to connect with much, but Bowl of Bowls connects with that Shatter, and look at that. That kill feed is looking red. This cart is going to get stopped here, and now we have a win condition for both teams' Pulse.
And it looks like this cart is going to stop at this second choke in between point A and B, and this is the goal line for Otter Oxide now. They have to make it to that point of the map and they win. If they're unable to do so, then they're going to be down 0-2 in this series, and it's going to be hard to come back from that.
Indeed, they have 4 minutes and 7 seconds to do that, and their first push in 4 minutes and 7 seconds, they got that cart a lot further than there, so they should be pretty confident with this. But if you're on the defense as TBA, do you just stick with a 3-3 here, forgo the DPS, and go, we're going to try and do what we seem to be the best at the moment?
Yeah, because TBA definitely played into it a little bit. They started on their DPS comp, and it looks like they're rolling out with it again, so hopefully they prepare a little bit better for Brutal One's Widow, because that's really what shut them down last time. I would honestly think, if I were them, I'd want to run this triple on defense, just because you know that you are prepared for it on this map. They've looked so much better, and if you play that triple, it almost forces the enemy team to run the same composition, just because of how synergistic the composition is. Like, every single character in general GOAT's composition is good on their own, but when you put them together, you sort of run into things like stacking auras and stacking damage in very similar ways, so the heroes play together very well. And if you can force the enemy team off what they want to run, which right now is this Widow from Brutal One, then you can win this map easily, but they're still kind of playing into it, which worries me.
We see Simple try and get a few cheeky boops across that bridge. Doesn't manage to find anything, though. In fact, the defending team here, TBA, are giving a lot of ground up to Otter Ox, deciding to play the long sight lines here. They do have Simple. We'll send those gets a fair distance. And sharp shot to win on the Ash as well. Hitting a lot of sharp shots. Marta playing the corner there, having to be a little bit careful with the health. We see the dive now coming in from Bowl of Bowls, but it's hit with that by Ossic Grenade and swiftly dealt with by the defending team. Marta having a bit of a nap near the payload. Not quite taken out though. We'll be waking up soon. Pushing forward, swinging away. Yoix coming in with the res onto Simple as well. That is the beauty of running a Mercy on defense.
And with that first fight, the card got a lot of distance, so if they can win, if the attackers can win one more fight here, it sets them up for pretty much almost capping point A, which is good for them. But this defense looks unbreakable. They definitely adapted to a lot of the sight lines Brutal One was taking. So by denying a lot of those sight lines, Brutal isn't able to get these massive multi-kills, isn't able to stagger their team the same way that it did on the first round.
Otter Oxide initiating the dive there onto Jonak, trying to get rid of that healing. Able to do so, but the barrage coming out from Simple finds Litzcat as well. Xavier taking out Simple. The defense hit on the back foot. Valkyrie now coming out from Yoix, giving them a lot more sustain, a lot more healing. However, that's not going to heal you through a self-destruct from Pie Ninja. Otter Oxide here with the numbers advantage. Trying to press that, pushing forward, trying to get a few more kills here. Marta staying alive through that, but might not be able to stay alive through the EMP from Famsu. Indeed, Yoix goes down as well. Nano coming out on to Bowl of Bowls. And we might see a trickle defense here, Pulse, from TBA on the defense. Or do they just give this up?
Yeah, they're definitely going to have to trickle onto this if they want to, but with Bowl of Bowls primaling and making sure that everyone's staying on, they're going to get point A for free. And things are getting a little scary. There's not a whole lot for the attackers right now other than that sound barrier and a kill on the side of Otter Oxide, but they have so much on the defense with that shatter coming through, with that bomb coming out. Just so much is happening in the backlines while this cart rolls for free though.
A brutal one with some brutal kills there. The staggers are all in favor of Otter Oxide here because that cart is moving up and they still have 1 minute 20 left on the clock. If you're TBA, you need to come out as a 6, and Marta is looks like might even get staggered here. Brutal one with a brutal shot onto sharp shot to win. Sound barrier now coming out from Xavier, allowing him to get much more aggressive there as well. And we do see the nano onto Marta swinging away, trying to keep that dream alive. Does get a kill, so does Simple as well. There's a brawl on the point, but it just edges forward there. That's what happens when the payload is so close to that endpoint. You leave it for a second, and the other team will get the win. But that makes this series interesting. We are 1-on-1 here.
Mm-hmm. It would have been absolutely amazing for TBA if they were able to come back and win that after that attack speed, but they almost did it, and that alone is impressive, and it also sort of keeps them in this series like from the mental standpoint, because if you get absolutely trashed on one map, that really sort of hurts team morale going into the end of the series. But they really put up a good fight, were able to turn around and almost come back and win that Rialto round. They were just, as soon as Brutal One got the space that they needed, and was able to keep getting these stagger kills, they didn't really have a good solution to stop staggering into it and sort of letting the cart get all that free distance. And that's something you really need to take into account coming into these last 3 maps.
Yeah, I think you at that point maybe you just give up first there. Yeah, okay. The enemy team get a tiny bit more time on the clock, but you need to come back as a 6 and win a team fight. If you can win a team fight and stabilize around one of those corners, it's very difficult for the attacking team to take that because they know they've only got one more fight and they didn't have a lot of ultimates in the bank, whereas TBA did. However, they were using those ultimates sort of all over the place against individual targets. We saw Martyr, shatter a few people, then get immediately taken out by Sharp Shot to win. And unfortunately, they weren't able to take the point there. But fortunately for us, that evens up this series, and that makes this a super, super exciting 1-1. We're going to be going to Hanamura next, and I believe the teams have actually faced off against each other on Hanamura before, and it was 2-1 to Otter Oxide here.
Mm-hmm. And again, that was first stage, so many things in the game have changed since then. But that does tell us that Otter Oxide sort of have expectations on this map, that we expect them to win a little bit. Like, it's not like 100-0, of course, but it's more of like a 55-45. So if they're able to keep this up and take this map, it'll set up the end of this series for Otter Oxide, because if anytime you can get up a map in this, it's going to make it easier on you. It's going to make it easier on you mentally, and you're going to be more prepared. You don't have to have that mentality of coming back to win these maps. So if they're able to take Hanamura and take it fast, show some level of dominance, then they could potentially close out this series for them early. However, TBA has lost to them before, so they're definitely going to have, if they have been scrimming properly and practicing properly as a team, which most of these teams in the finals have been doing, and I fully expect them to be doing it as well, then they're going to have prepped for this map, and they are going to have prepped for what Otter Oxide did last time as well.
And I think we might be seeing some more substitutions here as well. We'll talk about those in a second. Teams will be swapping sides once more. Will be in the blue this time around, TBA in red. That means TBA's got to attack first here, and this could all be about the momentum, because if you can take that first point in first push, get to second, and finish with time on the clock, you're in the almost opposite scenario that they were in on Rialto there, where the enemy team had finished at the end with a lot of time on that clock. And Hanamura is one of those maps that is renowned for 7-8 CP, so we might see something like that here.
Mm-hmm. And also worth noting, just because we brought it up for Rialto, that Hanamura is colloquially known as Dronamura because it's hard. It's very easy to cap point A, but it's very hard to cap point B. It's not unheard of for this map to go 3, 4, 5, 6, because we have seen it multiple times in minors do that. But point B is generally a hard point to take. So the faster you can do it, if you can put up a good time to set you up for multiple rounds of Hanamura, the better it is. But it generally kind of hits a stalemate after capping point A for a couple minutes. So we'll see how these teams fare on this map.
See what they do. They're just confirming some substitutions for those ones. They've actually happened. This is a great tournament, right? Because you can have rosters of 12 people, which gives you quite a large pool of talent to bring in for different maps.
Yeah, definitely. And both some of the teams in this, especially in minors, tend to have much larger rosters, just because the lower you are in Overwatch, and I'm not saying these teams are very low, but below Diamond or so, even below Plat or so, people have interesting hero pools. At the highest level of Overwatch, if you play a certain role, you have a very set hero pool, and you have a certain number of heroes that you have to play well in order to be a professional Overwatch player. So if you play main tank, you play Ryan, Winston, Orisa, and sometimes Hammond. But here, generally, people play heroes that they've either picked up or have like sort of a certain knack for. So sometimes instead of having a main support player who knows how to play Ana, Lucio, Mercy, you have someone that can play like Ana, Pharah, and Diva or something along those lines. So a little bit mixed pools. Having these larger rosters allow you to work around that. So if you have 3 DPS players, but 2 of them know how to play a subset of DPS really well, and then the other one has like a certain hero they're really good on, it allows you to use swaps effectively. And a lot of teams in minors have these 10, 11, 12 person rosters, which is why subs take a little bit longer in some of these maps.
Yeah, and we will see Brutal be swapped out for Bird, who we saw her early on playing on the Pharah. Was up against, I believe it was Simple on the Pharah, who has also been swapped out here. So maybe we'll see some Pharah play. I mean, Hanamura is not really a map for. It is a map for bunker compositions though, and we might see some other DPS on.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. We do see Sharpshot staying in, and we saw a lot of Ash from Sharpshot on Rialto. Ash is not a bad pick for Hanamura. You have the range you need, you have a lot of point pressure from the Dynamite, and you can apply a lot of pressure to front-loaded compositions like Goats, like Death Ball, so a good pick for Hanamura. And we do see two new heroes. Oh, Eli actually is coming in for the first time this series on the side of TBAs. Hopefully we can see some interesting composition stemming from this and not just more of the same. I have to fully believe that they're pulling these players for their hero pool.
Yeah, we are at the semi-finals here. You know, it's well and good to give them some playtime, and Owlet it's a great opportunity to do that. But when you start getting through to the semi-finals, closer to the finals, you start swapping people into their hero for what maps they're best on as well, because you know some players also seem to specialize on certain heroes that are very good for certain maps. Perhaps we might see some Mei, for instance. You know that's been played quite a bit on first point here on Hanamura. You can use that wall in the choke point to separate the enemy team. You know, to try and cut them in half to take an advantageous fight on the defense. But we'll start seeing what these teams are locking in now.
Mm-hmm. And again, this is loading into the lobby, making sure everyone has a good connection to the server that's up, and they're sort of just playing around until that happens. So we're not going to get baited again. We know it's all a ruse this time.
There we go. Now they're going to be assembling their heroes. I like being baited though. You know, it's quite fun. Get your hopes up. Hope to see some 6 DPS composition, maybe. You know, just like comp games.
That one's right in the Overwatch right there.
Indeed. Well, obviously, they're not 6 positions when I play. They're 5 DPS, and obviously I'm playing healer or tank usually. But we're not going to be seeing any of that here. We've got 2 great teams each other, and I think they're going to be chatting between themselves over the comms at the moment, talking about what compositions they want to lock in. A few new players, as we said before, will be debuting at the semi-finals here. Eli's first time playing the semi-finals. Could be interesting to see what he comes out with, but looks like we're going to have a fairly standard defense here, Paul.
Mm-hmm. This is that triple comp that was so strong for them on Rialto, and we're going to need to see Otter Oxide figure out a way to break this. Or my bad, Otter Oxide is the defensing, but we're going to have to see a interesting way to attack this, because it looks like Eli's running out on that Symmetra.
A lot of teams like utilizing that to get to point quite quickly or get to right room, but I think Joe Neck's done a bit of scouting here, straight back to spawn, and we might see some hero switches.
Mm-hmm. And it looks like they're going to stick with this, so they're running out with a slight variation of this, but with Eli on that Symmetra, it gives them a teleporter, which they can use to bypass the defense entirely and just set up on point. They have stronger healing since they're running the Moira, and they're just going to take this right to point and start a brawl.
Oh, straight to point, but Yoix goes down first, so she's out of the action, and so is all of that healing. And that's going to allow Otter Oxide to clean up that fight, and they've already got a Shatter now in the back. Bol's doing some work with that hammer.
They have a Shatter, they have a Rally, and a very strong ult advantage coming into this next fight. We do see a couple swaps coming out, because after that failed first attempt, you don't want to keep running your head into it and feeding the defenders more ult percentage. So they are now swapping to have that Somber end. They're swapping Jonah onto the Ana, and they're swapping Yikes back to this Mercy. So it's a variation of a comp that is not very common, but it looks like they're sort of setting up and trying to figure out how to attack this, because they're all going back into spawn again. They're going to be losing a lot of time off the clock for this, but they settle on a DPS comp with a Hammond finally. So they're running 3 DPS heroes and a tank that's incredibly survivable by themselves, and they're just going to try and poke from a distance and take people down one at a time.
Going to be playing the long game here. Persico Pirates is going to be charge up that EMP as quickly as possible. Bird gets the first pick on to Martabata. Doesn't matter too much for the rest of TBA here, because they could still play the poke game, but they're choosing to play quite passively.
And you kind of have to do that as triple DPS too, because you don't have the same in-your-face power that this defense has. So you're going to have to rely entirely on your Hammond swinging around, knocking people out of position, and your Tracer and Sombra and everyone following up on it. But the defense isn't really giving them that option. They're playing very tight corners, playing entirely on point. So it's making it hard for the attackers to find the space that they need in order to do damage without just dying instantly.
Martabata causing some disruption, but gets taken out by Save. Might not matter though, caused the disruption that he needed to do, because Eli and Jonak followed up with some kills of their own. Spawn advantage heavily in favour of TBA here. They're going to be able to push forward, get in some good position, some good sight lines. Eli straight down the middle, trying to click some heads there with the damage boost from Yikes. Now, travelling up to the high ground, raining some shots in from above. Bowler Bowls there with the fire strike, will find sharp shot to win. Shatter now though, coming out from Bowler Bowls, puts a few members of TBA on their backs, and there's a fair brawl on point. We're going to have just under a minute left after this fight is finished with, but some ultimates in the bank for TBA.
Yeah, and Otter Oxide has been playing this defense incredibly well. This is an entirely different team that we saw sort of last round, because it took them a while to swap to goats. Finally, they made the decision. This time they're just running out with it, knowing that they're a lot stronger on it, and they're making it very hard for TBA to do anything about this.
TBA with not a lot of time on the clock, but a lot of ultimates in bang. Eli switching over to Farah now. Petticoat Pirate does have that EMP, and Martabata has the minefield as well. Maybe we'll see a combination coming out from those two players. There's the EMP. Martabata swinging in. There's the minefield. However, Transcendence from Litcat. Litcat was prepared for that EMP, keeping the rest of Otter Oxide alive on that point. They managed to finish Martabata. Only 10 seconds left on the clock, and the kill feed is looking blue. Otter Oxide doing a very good job on this 3-3 composition in the defense. And somebody's got a touch point here from TBA, but they're caught in a Graviton Surge from Sakura. Sakura was waiting for them to try and touch that point. Pressing Q at the exact right time there. Round one complete, and we've got a full hold.
Yeah, this is very scary for TBA, because it puts them in a situation very similar to Rialto. First point is more or less a gimme after 4 minutes if you're running triple, which is exactly what Otter Oxide wants to do here. They just ran it on defense. There's literally no reason to change it up and do something cute or fancy. They can just run it and then stockpile alts until they have all 6 and then just blow them and win the point. So it forces the defense to run the same composition, which they didn't look as well practiced on for Rialto. So they're in a dangerous spot here. If they want to keep their playoff hopes alive, they absolutely need to draw this. They can't win it, because the best they can do is draw. They didn't get any progress on the point besides that 33%. And if they draw it, best case, there's only one more map in the series. If we see Otter Oxide do take this, though, then they're going to be down 2, and it's going to be hard to come back from that.
Very hard to come back from it, indeed. I love the play from Litzcat on the Zenyatta. When that EMP came out, didn't manage to touch Litcat, was able to go in with that Transcendence and keep the team alive throughout that EMP. I mean, if you're a Sombra and you're looking to get an EMP combo like with a minefield like that, the one character you need to make sure that you get is that Zenyatta, especially if they have Transcendence up.
And you don't even need to be that great at alt tracking to know that Petticoat had that EMP. It was just so long. They were on the Sombra for so long that you know that it had to have been up. So Litcat was just waiting and prepared for it. We do see the attackers running out on not what we expected, so they are a little bit playing this a little bit cutesy, but a pause comes through. So one good thing about this composition from the attackers is that they're running a Genji, a Sombra, and an Ana. And this is a composition of 3 heroes that's kind of known as hack and slash. You have a big ultimate that can disable everyone on the enemy team from using their skills, and then you have Genji, which is a very, very powerful DPS ult that allows you to take down people in 1 or 2 swings of his sword. So It's a very easy fight win condition and a very good one if you are not running goats. But again, like I think just running goats would have been the safer option for them at this point.
This is going to be especially hard for TBA because Multiplier is unfortunately disconnected and will come back in the game, but is going to start all the way in spawn. And in the meantime, Otter Oxide here are going to be able to push on to that point with a player advantage. They're going to have one more player here. However, they're not on this 3-3 composition, so it's not a lot of point presence. And there's a lot of DPS heroes on the defense as well. And if Sharp Shot to Wing can pop off, if Eli can pop off and that McCree as well, click a few heads, shut down that attack, they might be able to stabilize in time for Martabata to get back to point.
Yeah, it is going to be rough though, because your main tank, the person that has to hold the choke for you, is the one that disconnected. So it's going to make it very easy for the attackers to get through this choke and set up how they want to against this defense, which isn't ideal for the defense, but it's still possible again.
Yeah, a lot of pressure on the DPS, and also on Jonak on that Zenyatta, who was clicking a few heads before on Rialto. So with DPS heavy compositions like this, the variance is quite high. The fights can swing both ways pretty quickly. You can have one DPS character, get 2 kills, and so it's a 6v4, and you think, okay, one team's got an advantage, and because we're so used to seeing 3-3, a 6v4, 3, that fight's almost over every single time. However, with DPS, it just takes a good McCree to click a couple more heads, and you can even that fight out within seconds.
Mm-hmm. Especially with that Junkrat McCree, just so much poke coming through, such easy finishing conditions. And it looks like we're about to load back into this map. So Marty Barter finally rejoining, and we should be getting back to this in a second or two.
Interesting to see what the hero from Masterbuster is going to be there. Do you try and come back again on the main tank, or do you just try and come back on a Lucio or something to make sure you're back in that first team fight? We will see.
Hammond's always an option. Winston and Ryan are nice because they do have that mobility in their shift between leap and charge. They can get back relatively fast, but Marty Barter's just going okay. I saw him click Genji for a second. I was like, oh, are they just gonna do this? But nah, he swaps back to the ride. Petticoat Pirate getting hacked to start off this fight does not bode well for the defense, though.
Halfway to that first tick point, he's getting the first point, but Eli there doing some work with Petticoat Pirate as well. However, they're gonna need to keep someone on the point.
That was...
I won't mention the letter, I won't mention the number, but I can see what they were trying to do there. It was fairly dangerous on that point. They needed to keep people alive whilst Eli did the work, click the heads. But you got to keep someone on that point. I think just an error in communication, perhaps.
Yeah, and again, that would have been over just as fast anyway, because so many of the defense were already low or dead. And it's just rough. You had a DC, you get full hold. You just sort of have to wipe that one off and go to the next one. Forget about it, because that was almost worst case scenario for TBA in every way.
Indeed, and they will have to win the next to stay in this series. But all is not lost. All is not lost. We will be going to King's Row next, and TBA actually defeated Otter Oxide previously on this map 1-0. So they performed exceptionally well here on King's Row, and perhaps they can match that in this series as well.
I mean, that's exactly what you have to do, especially after getting 1-0, which we expected Otter Oxide to win. They had that showing in the past. They won it, so again, worst case scenario for TBA, in addition to already losing to that map to Otter Oxide in the past. You definitely have to wipe that one off, go to King's Row. This is TBA's map to come back and tie the series at 2-2. We do have a couple more subs coming in. It looks like, I want to make sure I get these right. Looks like Brutal is coming back in, and Famsu as well. So we'll get to see those two players. Likely means that we will see some more sniper coming out from Otter Oxide, much like we saw in King's Row. And I gotta wonder if they're coming at this from the same direction that they took King's Row, because both of these maps are favorable to Ryan compositions. You have the giant big shield. He doesn't really have any verticality. It does favor goats to an extent, which again is something that we've seen Otter Oxide perform very well on. But they're also bringing out these snipers again, so they're scheming something. I'm not entirely sure what, but I'm expecting snipers.
And there are some very good sniper positions on that first point as well. Or maybe we just might see some cheeky strategies, that we've seen before. When Gladiators played London that one time, they did a bit of a bait with the 3-3 composition, forced the rotation out. Had some good Widow play, but it's great. King's Row is such a good map, right? Because you've got so many options. First point is different to Streets phase, is different to third point, and you do need to be well versed in the 3-3 compositions, because even before Goats was popular, you still had Reinhardt and Zarya on this map.
Yeah, for sure. And like you were saying, King's Row is one of the favorite community maps in Overwatch League. Like, I'm pretty sure I remember a poll saying something like 80% of Overwatch players or something along those lines, King's Row was their favorite map. And part of that is because nothing is considered bad on this map. There's a lot of variance, there's a lot of heroes that are good, even when those heroes themselves aren't good. A lot of niche heroes have always worked on this map, so Maze, snipers, Hanzo was good here before Hanzo was considered a viable pick. Pharaoh's run here, Genji's run here, so you see a lot of different things. It's a map where you can really play to your team's strengths.
Some final substitutions here. We'll take a look at those in a second. What those are locked in. Looks like TBA are going to be on the defense first, and as we said before, they won on this map last time by a full hold on first here, so we'll see what strategy they decide to pull out the bag, because this is one of the maps as well where you could run a bunker strategy pretty early on with the Junkrat on the high ground, with the Orisa and the Diva to drop down to contest that point as well, or you can play those heavier Ryan Zarya compositions, use the hotel for a bit of cover from enemy poke damage. If we are going to see a lot of snipers though, it's going to be down to that Reinhardt and his shield and the communication with the team to make sure that your team aren't getting sniped out behind you.
And looks like the final substitution that's going to be coming in is Yikes is going to be sitting out for Hephaestus. So Hephaestus showing their face for the first time in this semifinals match.
Might be able to craft a victory here for team. Mythological Greek joke there for everyone.
I got it. I mean,
classic Scissor Squad. My jokes don't get any better, but it is exciting to see Hephaestus in the light. So it's always good to see some new players. And in fact, I was looking out for Eli on Hanamura, and of course we all know what happened at the end there with the disconnect. But Eli was doing a very good job on that McCree. Managed to secure a few kills, and that team fight nearly turned itself around, and we could be in a very different situation right here, right now. So I'm looking forward to seeing Eli on this map. Looking forward to watching and casting Hephaestus as well. And let's talk about Jonak for a bit as well, because playing on the Zenyatta and the Ana, the Bionades have been really good from him. The Orbs of Destruction have been very good as well, hitting a lot of heads, and Zen can put out a surprising amount of damage, especially with the most recent patch that's just upped that damage ever so slightly.
Yeah, I've actually been very impressed with both Flex Supports players from Yikes and Jonak. Jonak, we've seen a little bit more on that Zenyatta, taking from his namesake in Overwatch League, the player named Jonak on New York Excel, which is arguably one of the best teams in the league. So very good Zenyatta play from Jonak. But both Ana players so far have found incredible value from those Bionades, just very consistent in getting large Bionades on the enemy team to deny them healing. Has been very clutch for them in many situations.
Like Famsu will be coming out of the Oxide roster here, and Bird will be coming in, and she's played quite well throughout this series. So looking at the swaps from both sides here, I think we're going to see a fairly even matchup on King's Row. And I think this is going to be about momentum. If you can win out that first team fight and get that cart moving on second, that can get you quite often almost halfway through third, because you end up with the ultimate advantage. You can get that cart quite a long way through Streets phase, and then you tend to have one fight at the end there, and if you've got a Graviton Surge coming out and you can combo that with something, you can take that second point, and and get the cart moving almost to the end of third.
Mm-hmm. With all payload maps, it's kind of like that to an extent, so might see that happen in King's Row. Third points are generally very hard to hold from the defense, but you can roll it through sometimes. And finally, we were able to load into this map, though.
We are indeed. And I'm going to get debated this time with any silly hero lock-ins. Let's wait until the defense are out of the doors. TBA going to be in the blue on the defense. And I think we might see a 3-position Hibbles.
Yeah, I expect it to some extent. I do expect Brutal to pull out a Widow at key points in this map, like maybe roll out his Widow on the first point, see if they can get 1 or 2 people out of position before the fight really starts. But, I mean, we saw a couple changes coming from the defense, so maybe they expect that, and that's why they have Eli in to run that counter Widow. And we'll see how this works out, but it looks like both teams are not opting for the heavy tank compositions right now.
No, Eli on the Widowmaker, actually. So I'll eat my words there. And as I said before, Eli showed some real mechanical skill on the McCree on Hanamura, so that's a transferable skill set to a Widowmaker. Gotta love that hit scan. The question is, where's Eli going to be setting up? In the high ground, in the window there. The rest of the team is pretty standard.
Yeah, for sure. I will say that this defensive comp, specifically this comp, puts a lot of pressure on Bird, just because more or less 4 out of 6 members of their team is able to shoot afar reliably. The double sniper plus Ana, who's also a sniper healer character that is able to do damage via hit scan, and Jonak. So
Eli getting the first kill there onto Bruce, establishing his dominance in the Widow battle, and that enables his team to sit back and take a bit of a breather as Otter Oxide regroup.
yeah, Otter Oxide absolutely have to regroup. Brutal 1 finally respawns, so they're starting to look for angles, starting to find their way to get their foot into this point, and Brutal is able to find Eli on the other side. The sniper duel this time.
It's opened up the gates here for the attacking team, for Otter Oxide to push in, but Brutal 1 with some brutal headshots again, once more. And I don't think TBA are going to be able to hold first this time.
No, not for sure. And with everyone falling, that's going to have to be a full reset. They won't even have a chance to really contest this point, but they will be able to contest it shortly after the point right at the choke. And it's going to be a lot harder for Brutal 1 to find key headshots if they're able to push up to this choke, but they still have to be careful because every single fight, Brutal 1's just been getting these headshots before anyone can even pay attention to where he is, so a little bit more awareness needs to come out from the defense.
TBA made some hero switches going into that 3 position. Needs to take an early fight here because they're not favoured in ultimate advantage, but you don't need ultimates when you get kills like that, and they're going to be able to push up to that choke point here and utilise that as cover, perhaps, from some of the snipers. Brutal 1 trying to take position, getting forced off.
Festus is just denying Brutal 1 the sniper window, as Lucio is just sort of in their face getting these key boops, and Bulls opens it up with a shatter, but no one's able to die from it.
And now there's a counter shatter coming from Martin. Martin's pushing forward, sharp shot to win, very high charge there, manages to melt Bolt of Bowls, but Jonek has gone down to the sniper rifle and Brutal 1, so a lot of healing lost on the defense. Dragon coming through them as well, will take out Otter. Brutal 1 as well, getting a lot of value from that Widow, just getting a lot of picks.
Yeah, but it looks like Sharpshot's trying to get away, but won't able to get away as that Zarya, so they won't have the energy that Zarya builds over time in this next fight, while Sakura is going to keep all of the energy from that last fight, and it's going to make it hard for this defense to find a foothold, especially with Brutal 1 and Bird setting up for all these stagger kills coming in. The defense is going to have to be careful that they watch their heads as they walk in here.
Let's Cat has that nano boost, which I suspect is going to be going on to Bowler Bowl's next fight, allowing him to charge up that shatter at a very fast pace. We are seeing the defense now coming in from TBA. They have the Graviton Surge in the bank. It comes out, it catches most of Otter Oxide, but there's an instant sound barrier from Xavier EXE trying to keep the team alive, but the biotic grenade there came out as well. That was really well placed, and that's allowed TBA to stabilize. Fantastic aim there from Jonak.
And they're going to want to push all the way up to this choke just to make sure that they can't easily find their footing in, especially with these snipers. If they're not paying attention to where they're setting up or how they're approaching this fight, then they can easily get sightlines on them. But by pushing up to the choke, it makes it a lot harder for the DPS to do anything. However, Bird finally switching off that Hanzo after using it last round, the Dragon Strike, and swapping over this Pharah again. So you're going to have to be careful and watch this guy.
Fantastic shatter coming out from Bowl of Bowls, allowing Otter Oxide to press forward, get the kills they need. We see the self-destruct coming out from Petticoat Pirate. Doesn't manage to find too much though. That card is going to get moving, but a lot of ultimates invested there from the attacking team.
Yeah, a lot of ults, but they are still coming online with this Graviton and Barrage next round. And if Dronite gets staggered here, which he does, that's more or less going to stall out their team another 10-15 seconds and give them distance almost until this first corner in point C. They need to be careful. They have this nano boost in order to retake control of the cart from the defenders, but they definitely need to watch out for that nano boost, that matching nano boost on the defense and the Graviton.
3:36 left on the clock. Very respectable time so far. Now the aggression is coming out from Otter Oxide. They are caught by a biotic nade. However, Bird gets a pick on Otter. And now the nano is coming out with the shatter as well. Bowl of Bowls putting the defending team on their back, pushing forward, pumping in the damage as well. Sakura very high charge. And this is going to be very difficult for the defending team here, TBA, to come out with, because Sharpshot to Win's not going to have that charge, not going to have that DPS.
Yeah, they're not. And they're rolling into this last point pretty well in time, and they have as many ults as they want to win this fight. They have Tire, they have Barrage, they have a Graviton to even keep them away from point, which they do, and they won't touch it because the Graviton kept everyone away from the cart.
Marta with what would have been a clutch shatter there, puts Otter Oxide on their backs, but the rest of the team were caught in that Graviton surge, and then Marta, because the animation takes a second to put that hammer on the ground, wasn't able to charge onto the point in time, and 2 minutes 53 on the clock here.
Definitely not a bad time for King's Row. It's not the best time, it's not the worst time, but it's a good time. So they're really setting the pace for this match and forcing TBA to play their hearts out if they want to win this, because now that they've had their attack round, they know that they have to cap it. They have to cap it with a decent time bank if they want to stay competitive, and they also, basically, it's putting pressure on them to complete this map, which isn't a guaranteed.
Certainly is not. See what the defending team wants to roll out here. Otter Oxide looks like they're going to be opting for at least a Reinhardt and a Zarya. Let's Cat on Anna, but Bird, she's going to be on the Ashe. Are we going to see double sniper coming out from the defense?
This looks very similar to what TBA just ran, except swapping the Hanzo for an Ashe. So it's not unheard of. Having this double sniper puts a lot of pressure on Eli again, because you can have two people looking at the Widow long range instead of just hoping that Brutal wins every Widow duel. So puts a little bit more pressure on the attacking Widow. They are running this Genji. Is this Bastion actually? No. Quit picking Bastion. You're playing with my heart.
we have hopes and dreams as well. Don't spoil them, please, players. Both teams now utilising the cover of the Alderworth Hotel to avoid a bit of poke damage. Bird on the high ground, raining in those shots. That Winchester-style rifle there, dropping down from the high ground. Both teams giving a lot of respect to each other. Now the charge coming in, though. Eli getting the first pick onto Bird could prove pivotal. Marta has gone down. However, look at this. Eli, uncontested there, does manage to get the win the Widow battle. Getting a headshot onto Brutal One. If the attack is able to get together and get back quickly, they have the spawn advantage here, Pulse.
Yeah, but with Sharpshot dying last in that fight, that means that they're going to have to wait even longer, and it's going to give Brutal One and Bird a chance to set back up. So they're going to be able to get back in right as the time the attackers are pushing through, but they're still going to be there instead of getting a free 6v5.
Eli managing to get the headshot onto once. It's going to have that sightline all the way down point. We do see the shatter coming out from Bowl of Bowls, but no real follow up there enabled. We see the nano This is it. If the defense wants to stall, Bowler Balls is going to have to get a few kills, but can't because another great biotic grenade there from Jonak. Jonak's just been hitting those for days.
Again, just absolutely clutch bionades always when they need them, and it's so consistent. It makes sure that his team can just always rely on people being purple when they need to be. So they're going to get point A with a pretty good time bank, and it's going to set them up for a competitive time bank for really the second half of this map. It looks like they will have enough time to potentially cap point C, which means that there's a good chance of this going to a score of something like 4-5 or 5-6. And we see Sharp Shot coming into this next fight with a Genji Blade, and they can combo this with a couple different things, honestly, like a Graviton's coming up soon, the Shatter's coming up soon, so as long as Sharp Shot stays alive, it doesn't die to some of this poke coming through, but Hephaestus falls soon. So they're going to want to retreat this, make sure that they don't lose anyone else, and it gives them a chance for Sharp Shot.
Marta using the chassis. The hammer hits the ground. Defense is going to stabilize.
Yeah, and with all these stagger coming out on the defense now, they're going to have to regroup, but now it's a matter of how much time they're going to lose. The win condition for this next fight is definitely getting Sharp Shot's blade off. Eli is swapping to the Hanzo to help provide a little bit more shield pressure against the enemy team, who has swapped to this almost triple comp, but they're running the McCree with it. It's going to have a lot more staying power with the shield, and the defense is going to try and win every fight just by pressuring Martyr Father a lot.
Graviton Surge coming out. Where is the blade? It's not there because one takes shot out in this fight. And that kill feed is looking red once more. A lot of ultimates invested there from the attack, and the defense have got a lot of ults to go with for this next fight.
Yeah, this is an area where just having a good ult economy, making sure you don't overcommit fights, is really showing its head for the defense, because they're coming in this next fight. They have 4 ults. Since they're running this brawly comp, Bowl of Bowls is going to get a shatter within a fight or two, which means that they're going to set up to keep cycling these ults and keep rolling this. And it's really on Sharp Shark to pull out this blade, even if he doesn't get value from it.
Well, the blade is coming out with the nano. A great ballistic grenade once from Jonah, but Sharp Shots are taken out by Sakura. Bird has gone down. Now we see the Graviton Surge coming out from the defense with the High Noon as well. Takes out Marta Barta. We've got a bit of a battle on our hands at this point, but the defense are getting the better of it. Sakura pushing forward. Very high charge, taking out Eli. Now, the staggers not quite there. Sakura getting very aggressive. And 24% on the way to the next Graviton Surge.
But Petticoat Pirate does get out with their charge. They're coming online with a shatter. Another a nano's coming up this fight, even though they just used one last fight, because Jonak stayed alive and is able to build up so much ult charge off of the retreating members of his own team. So it's not lost. They do swap off of the composition they're running. 2 goats now. Eli's on the Brig, Sharp Shot's on that Diva. And they're going to be able to pressure shields a lot better than the defense now, because they have that extra tank rather than that crate.
TBA rotating on the high ground, coming into a shatter from Bowl of Bowls. However, counter shatter coming out from Marta Barta. Won't matter though, they can't follow up when they're all dead, and look at all that damage coming out. The nano is there as well. And we're getting closer and closer to last fight territory. And remember, TBA need to win this map to stay in the series.
Yeah, and it's not really looking good for them. They invested a lot in the last fight. They threw away some of their ults to swap to this composition. It was really only like 1 ult or so anyway. But the defense is just able to cycle theirs so effectively that they're making it very hard for the attackers to find value, find the space they need to operate.
TBA pushing up to the corner here. Cooldowns being used, bubbles being used by Zara's getting that charge up. We now see the nano coming out onto Marta Barta, swinging left and right. It's got kills, but has to keep the shield up because of the Deadeye. Brutal One taking out Marta Barta just as the shield goes down. Brutal One as well getting a kill. One Petticoat Pirate trying to even this up. Both teams here getting kills. Petticoat Pirate with a lot of charge here, Pulse, and she's doing very well on that Zarya, maintaining that charge and getting out of fights when she needs to.
But Brutal One manages to stay alive and won't get set. The defense will definitely have another shot to contest this as it's rolling into point B, and the attackers have to win this fight if they want to stay in the map, because it's about to have 10 seconds. Claw.
This is it for Otter Oxide. If they can win the fight here, they're going to be able to... But they're caught in a grab surge. That's it from Sharpshot to win -3. This is exactly what TBA needed. They're going to be able to win out on this fight. Or at least they should be able to with the numbers they've got there. Get this payload moving. And they're going to need to get it to third to stay in the series.
And they keep Petticoat Pirate alive. So Petticoat gets to keep their charge coming in this next fight. And they're rolling into this with Shatter, a Nano, and a Rally. With his 2 more ults than the defense has. Even though Hephaestus just fell off the side. That might come back to bite them in this last fight. They don't have the numbers advantage. They need to regroup before they can take this fight.
They are backing off here, waiting for Hephaestus back. I do like this. They know they've got to go in with Dix, but look at this. The defense here can smell the weakness. They're pushing forward, buying a lot of space. And now both teams are coming in for the engage. TBA pushing forward. Otter Oxide backing off, giving that rally some respect. They don't want to engage whilst the has that much sustain. And now the Graviton Surge is coming out from the defense. However, not able to follow up through all that sustain. Martin Barton pushing forward, swinging away. Petticoat Pirate with that high charge managing to melt Bird as well. That kill feed is looking blue. Last ditch Deadeye doesn't get any value. Petticoat Pirate melting absolutely everywhere.
And final stalls are coming out for this card. Bird has this rally, and we do see the Bull of Bulls charging out on Ryan. So if they can get the shatter, which they land a massive shatter.
That could be the game-winning shatter right there, but we see the sound barrier coming out from Eston, keeping this team alive. Both teams fighting it out on the point. TBA need to win this fight to stay in this series. They've got the Graviton Surge, they're pumping the damage in there. Just need to get some kills here, and the Shatter's going to be able to enable that, comboed with the Nano as well. Barter caught in a Graviton Surge, they can't get that much value, but Eli's doing work on that Brigitte, and looks like that point is, that card is so close to getting to the point. TBA need to clear the defending team, though the spawn advantage is there. They need to clean that team off there quickly. Shatter coming out from Bowler Bowls does fall, and they will get that point, but it is in overtime.
I think that might be the match.
I think it is.
They capped in overtime, so that means they don't get another chance to attack point A, meaning the best they can do is draw. And since this is a best of 4, it's a little bit weird terminology, but best of 4 being you play the maps, but if there's a draw, which this map could potentially end in a draw, then it counts.
Yeah, I think that is it. I think we have our finalists here. Otter Oxide will be going through to the Minors Finals to face off against Flashpoint here. We are going to play the end of this match, though. I believe the teams are having a bit of a discussion about it. I'd like to see it played exceptionally well throughout this. Still 2 minutes 53 on the clock for Otter Oxide to make something happen, and also for TBA to make a staunch defense here. You know, get a bit of playtime at this level.
There's no reason to stop this map at this point, but that is something that we'll probably have to check after this map just to ensure that it's going on.
Well, either way, we're going to see the end of this series, and we're going to see a beautiful end to it as well. Brutal one on the Hanzo, trying to get some brutal headshots, perhaps. Defending team coming out with the Goats composition here. Pushing forward, Marta Barter does take a shield bash to the face. Getting battered around there. A great biotic grenade there from Litcat has just allowed Otter Oxide to push forward. Get a few more kills here. And look at that! Shatter out already for Bowler Bowls. And that's going to be first point Bowls.
Yeah, that's going to be exactly what they need to cap it. And that is going to be a decisive first to 3 for Otter Oxide here.
Is indeed. And there we go. No draw there. Otter Oxide will win King's Row, and that is GG's. Congratulations to Otter Oxide for getting through the Owlet Minors Finals. Commiserations to TBT. They put up a very good fight there, and it was a very good series, actually.
Yeah, it was closer than the scoreline implies, with there were definitely some weaknesses in TBA's defenses that Otter Oxide was just able to adapt to faster. And I do think Otter Oxide sort of proving why they were the 2 seed in this. It was just, they looked a little bit better on some of the compositions that were stronger on in early stage, like early stage before some of the patches came out with Baptiste and some of the hero changes. And they were just able to consistently win that mirror match.
TBA coming out the gates very strong on Lijiang well, and things just didn't work out well for them. I think it was a case of Otter Oxide just adapting to their opponents that little bit better, and a lot of those fights, came down to maybe some Zarya bubble usage there, some shield bashes at the right time, some shatters landing here or there, just all these little minute details that in the 3-3 compositions really do matter.
Mm-hmm. And the one that we kept talking about, honestly, were the names. Both Otta players were able to very consistently get nades off. And one of the things to get better and sort of looking at these teams, because most of these teams are gold, plat range, one thing that really sort of is a big, what's the word I'm looking for? A big sort of benchmark for a team if they want to climb up into Diamond, into Masters, is being able to play around those support abilities, because supports have some of the strongest abilities in the game if you're able to take advantage of them. But you don't see these types of purples all the times at high levels because tanks are able to play around it better, DPS are able to play around it better, but it really boils down to the Ryan and the D.Va being able to work together and make sure that Anas can't get that level of effectiveness that we saw from these teams.
Because they can be absolutely fight-ending. You cannot transcend through that. It stops forms of healing there. The only thing you can really do is invest a sound barrier, perhaps, but you can't always do that. And as you say, the support lineups on both teams were absolutely fantastic. The aim with those biotic grenades was great, and also from the Annas as well, they were putting a lot of pressure on enemy Pharahs when the teams were Pharah as well. So they were hitting a lot of their shots, some great mechanical skill.
Mm-hmm. Overall, very impressive match from both teams. Otter Oxide is going to be the one that progresses on to Flashpoint. So it's going to be the 1st seed versus the 2nd seed in the Owlet Miners division.
And make sure you join us for that at 9 p.m. EDT tomorrow, because that's going to be a match you won't want to miss. So keep that in your diaries. Make sure you follow all the Owlet social media as well. But I think that's going to be it from myself and Pulse here. Thank you so much for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure. And thank you as well to Ben for doing the production behind the scenes of Fives as well, for making this happen. Thanks to the teams for turning out. And thank you very much to the viewers as well for joining. So make sure you're there tomorrow for the Miners Finals, because that's going to be a real great game.